United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has actually come to the public and he has addressed the world that the attack of Hamas in the Israel is a mistake and should not have happened. And he has told the Hamas that it must release the hostage it has taken to the Gaza Strip or those hostages who are within the Israel territory. And at the same time, the Secretary General of UN has told the state of Israel that it must strike in Gaza only on the military operators, and it must respect those civilian infrastructure, and the airstrike or the military strikes must respect humanitarian rules and must adhere to international rules and regulation. The Antonio Guterres has also come out clearly that it is time for the world to resolve the conflict between the Palestinians and the people of Israel. That it is time for the people of Israel and the Palestinians to accept a two-state conflict resolution that will see Israel as a state living together with Palestinians as a state side by side. Because the ongoing war between Hamas and the Israelites actually started because of the long forgotten breed by the Palestinians to have their own state, and for the Israelites not to occupy the Palestinians' territories. Please listen to the UN Secretary General press briefing to the world. Please listen to this carefully.
Good morning. I've just concluded an extraordinary meeting of senior UN leaders to discuss the unprecedented developments in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory. Let me begin by repeating my utter condemnation of the abhorrent attacks by Hamas and others against Israeli towns and villages in the Gaza periphery, which have left over 800 Israelis dead and more than 2,500 injured. Sadly, these numbers are expected to rise as the attacks are ongoing and many remain unaccounted for. In addition, over 100, possibly more, Israelis, civilians and military, have been reported captured by armed groups, including women, children, and the elderly. Some are being held hostage inside Israel, and many others have been taken inside the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad have launched thousands of indiscriminate rockets that have reached central Israel, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. I recognize the legitimate grievances of the Palestinian people, but nothing can justify these acts of terror and the killing, maiming, and abduction of civilians. I reiterate my call to immediately cease these attacks and release all hostages. In the face of these unprecedented attacks, Israeli airstrikes have pounded Gaza. I'm deeply alarmed by reports of over 500 Palestinians, including women and children, killed in Gaza and over 3,000 injured. Unfortunately, these numbers are rising by the minute as Israeli operations continue. While I recognize Israel's legitimate security concerns, I also remind Israel that military operations must be conducted in strict accordance with international humanitarian law. Civilians must be respected and protected at all times. Civilian infrastructure must never be a target. And we already have reports of Israeli missiles striking health facilities inside Gaza, as well as multi-storied residential towers and a mosque. 2 UNRWA schools sheltering displaced families in Gaza were also hit. Some 137,000 people are currently sheltering in UNRWA facilities, with the number increasing as heavy shelling and airstrikes continue. I am deeply distressed by today's announcement that Israel will initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, nothing allowed in, no electricity, food, or fuel. The humanitarian situation in Gaza was extremely dire before these hostilities. Now it will only deteriorate exponentially. Medical equipment, food, fuel, and other humanitarian supplies are desperately needed, along with access for humanitarian personnel. Relief and entry of essential supplies into Gaza must be facilitated, and the UN will continue efforts to provide aid to respond to these needs. And I urge all sides and the relevant parties to allow United Nations access to deliver urgent humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians trapped and helpless in the Gaza Strip. And I appeal to the international community to mobilize immediate humanitarian support for these efforts. The UN Special Coordinator and I are engaging with leaders in the region to express our concern, our outrage, and to advance efforts to avoid any spillover to the wider Middle East. Even in these worst of times, and perhaps especially in the most trying moments, it is vital to look to the long-term horizon and avoid irreversible action that would embolden extremists and doom any prospects for lasting peace. This most recent violence does not come in a vacuum. The reality is that it grows out of a long-standing conflict with a 56-year-long occupation and no political end in sight. It's time to end this vicious circle of bloodshed, hatred, and polarization. Israel must see its legitimate needs for security materialized, and Palestinians must see a clear perspective for the establishment of their own state realized. Only a negotiated peace that fulfills the legitimate national aspirations of Palestinians and Israelis, together with their security alike, the long-held vision of a two-state solution in line with United Nations resolutions, international law, and previous agreements, can bring long-term stability to the people of this land and the wider Middle East region. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
After listening to that, what do you have to say about the war between Hamas and Israel? Should Israel actually continue the airstrikes in the Gaza Strip? Should Israel cut humanitarian help to the people of Gaza? Please drop your comment in the comment section below. And if this is your first time to come into our YouTube channel, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video thumbs up. Share the video to your friends. And if your friends are lovers of politics, then request them to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And with that, I say thank you until we meet in our next news.